Keanu Reeves, one of the most respected figures in Hollywood, stepped quietly into a high-end car dealership. To him, it felt like just another normal day. But what unfolded inside would change everything. When the truth about who he was came to light, it wouldn't just be surprising, it would be unforgettable. It was an ordinary morning in Los Angeles. The sky stretched out, clear and endless, like a quiet invitation. Keanu walked the city streets in a black leather jacket and faded jeans, his calm presence drawing the occasional glance from those who recognized him. As always, he greeted them with humility, a wave here, a smile there, never one to chase the spotlight. Stopping at a familiar cafe, he greeted the barista by name. "Morning, Oliver." "Hey, Keanu, the usual." He nodded, please. While he waited, his mind drifted. For the past few months, he had been searching not just for a car, but for something meaningful. Maybe something rare, something he could restore and put toward a cause that mattered to him. With coffee in hand, he continued on. There was a dealership he'd had in mind, known for its collection of exclusive cars. When he stepped through the glass doors, he was met with a space that radiated wealth. The floors shimmered, the air smelled of new leather. Staff in designer suits moved briskly, tending to well-dressed customers. Keanu, simple in appearance, was nearly invisible to them, but not entirely. Whispers followed him as he made his way across the floor. Does he even know where he is? He's not buying anything. Keanu heard them but didn't react. His attention was fixed on a car in the back, a classic beauty, rare and untouched. Its design, its color, its presence, everything about it drew him in. He approached a nearby salesman who was glued to his phone. "Excuse me, could you tell me more about this model?" Keanu asked gently. The man looked up briefly. "I'll get someone," he muttered, already walking off. Keanu stood still, eyes returning to the car. His expression remained calm, though a small crease formed between his brows. Moments later, a man in a stiff suit approached the manager. His steps were deliberate, his eyes scanning Keanu head to toe. "This car is extremely rare," he said. The tone was less welcoming and more like a challenge. "That's why I'm here," Keanu replied evenly. The manager's eyes narrowed slightly. "It's not for just anyone." Keanu gave a faint smile. He didn't argue. He didn't need to. Soon after, another man approached. Richard. His walk was stiff, his eyes cold. "Interested in this one?" he asked, barely hiding the sarcasm. "It's an impressive machine," Keanu answered calmly. "I'd like to learn more." Richard scanned his clothes, the scuffed jacket, the jeans, and raised an eyebrow. "Interesting," he said slowly. "This is one of our most exclusive models. Very few even get to look at it, let alone drive one." He stepped slightly to block the car, folding his arms. "You do know this car costs more than a home in Beverly Hills, right?" Keanu didn't blink. "I'm aware. That's why I came." Richard laughed, a short, dry sound that held no kindness. Richard's smile faded into something colder, more contempt than amusement. He folded his arms and leaned in slightly. "Look, let me be blunt. Cars like this don't just attract anyone. They're made for a certain kind of buyer. Someone who understands what they're actually looking at. And respectfully, you don't exactly match that profile." Keanu took in a deep breath, trying to suppress the discomfort rising inside him, discomfort that was beginning to sharpen into quiet offense. He tilted his head slightly as if confirming what he'd just heard. "Profile?" he repeated evenly. "Yeah, profile," Richard repeated, leaning into the word. "Our vehicles aren't just transportation, they're status, they're symbols of success, of exclusivity, things that, let's be honest, don't really line up with." He waved a hand toward Keanu's clothes. The silence that followed was thick. A few employees paused mid-task. Some pretended not to listen, but their body language said otherwise. Keanu said nothing at first. He looked at Richard, choosing his words with care. "Interesting how you think clothing tells you everything about someone. That probably says more about you than it does about me." His voice remained calm, but his gaze held firm. Richard's expression tightened, irritation creeping into his eyes. He stepped closer, voice lowering but dripping with hostility. "Listen, I see guys like you all the time. You walk in, fantasize for a few minutes, then leave without buying anything? So if you're just here to window shop, stop wasting my time. Keanu didn't back away. His stance hadn't changed, but now there was a quiet edge to him. The patience was still there, but layered beneath it was something stronger. And what if I'm not here to dream? He asked softly. Richard chuckled bitterly, shaking his head in disbelief. Then you're definitely in the wrong place. Because this isn't for people who don't have anything to prove. And you don't look like you've got either the cash or the credentials. The air in the showroom thickened. Keanu looked at him silently, no longer uncomfortable. Now clearly fed up, he gave a small smile. Not of amusement, more of realization. I always thought real luxury meant treating people with respect, he said, voice low but pointed. Maybe that's something you should think about. He remained steady, unmoving. Richard, meanwhile, bristled with visible rage. His voice rose, sharper and more defensive than before. People like you waste our time, he hissed. This isn't a park stroll, and we're not here to entertain dreamers in scuffed jackets and empty pockets? Keanu studied him for a long second. His eyes calm but piercing. Funny, you talk about wasting time. Yet here you are, spending it judging others by how they dress, instead of who they are. Richard's eyes narrowed. His cheeks flushed. Red, he stepped even closer, invading Keanu's space. I know exactly what matters, he snapped. And it sure isn't getting lectured by someone who thinks they can just walk in here like they belong. You don't. Keanu didn't flinch. Their eyes locked, neither looking away, but something had shifted. Richard realized his intimidation wasn't working. His frustration boiled over. You don't tell me what to do. Richard barked, raising his fist in a quick, angry motion. Whether to scare or to strike, no one could tell, but Keanu reacted instantly. He caught the man's wrist midair, firm, controlled, nonviolent. A move not of aggression, but restraint. For a moment, time stopped. The entire room froze. Every eye locked on the scene. Richard, stunned, stood with his arms suspended, trapped by Keanu's steady grip. Then Keanu looked at him, not angry, but calm. Disarmingly calm. And when he spoke, his voice cut through the silence. This anger you're feeling, it's not about me. Might be time you figure that out before you take it out on someone else. He released Richard's arm just as gently. The manager stumbled back slightly, trying to collect himself, but the authority he carried minutes ago had clearly cracked. Keanu adjusted his jacket, gave one last glance and said, respect isn't expensive, but it's rarer than any car in this place. Without waiting for a reply, he turned and walked toward the exit. The room stayed silent. The only sound was his footsteps echoing off the polished floor. Everyone, staff and customers alike, stood frozen. As he neared the doors, something caught his eye. In a quiet corner, a young man held up his phone, recording. Not just the end, but it seemed the entire encounter. Their eyes met. The man looked nervous but stood his ground, nodding once in silent support. Keanu offered a subtle smile. Barely there, but full of meaning. And then he stepped out into the sunlight, leaving the glass doors behind him, inside. Richard tried to pull himself together, but the air had shifted. No one looked at him the same. He could feel the judgment now, and not the kind he was used to giving. The video didn't stay hidden long. By the next morning, the world had seen it. That moment, the arrogance, the judgment, and the calm defiance that shut it all down had gone viral. People everywhere were talking about what happened in that dealership, and the fallout. It wasn't just shocking. It was unforgettable. Respect doesn't cost a thing, someone wrote, but clearly it's harder to find than any of the cars in that dealership. Within hours, the quote spread like wildfire, featured in viral posts, memes, and even major news headlines. Online reactions were intense. How could anyone treat Keanu Reeves like this? He's literally one of the most down-to-earth actors in Hollywood. That manager clearly thinks he's above everyone. What a shame for the dealership. And one echoed sentiment. Keanu handled it with quiet strength, total legend. People weren't just shocked by how a customer was treated. They were outraged that someone as deeply respected as Keanu was treated with such arrogance. Blogs and media outlets jumped on the story. But more than that, it sparked a larger conversation. This wasn't only about Keanu. It was about how luxury spaces often judge people by their appearance and status. At the dealership, the backlash was immediate and brutal. Social media pages were swarmed with furious comments. People demanded apologies, explanations, even boycotts. The manager, Richard, tried to defend his behavior, but every excuse he gave fell flat. There was a misunderstanding, he claimed. I didn't realize it was Mr. Reeves. But the public wasn't buying it. Soon, anonymous employees began speaking to reporters. He always acted like that, one said. Didn't matter who you were, he looked down on everyone. The fire only grew. Sales tanked, longtime clients walked away. The dealership's name was suddenly toxic. Meanwhile, Keanu said nothing. He never chased revenge or drama. At home, in the simplicity he always valued, he reflected. He understood that this wasn't a rare experience. Being judged by your clothes or wealth, it happened to people every day, he told a close friend. The video's out there. People are reacting. But I don't want this to be another viral scandal. I want to turn it into something real. What are you going to do? The friend asked. Keanu just smiled gently. Handle it my way. He knew he had to go back, not to prove a point, but to make one. The car he'd been admiring still lingered in his mind. Not because of the machine, but because of what it had come to represent. When Keanu returned to the dealership, days had passed, but the internet hadn't stopped. The video was still trending. The media was still buzzing. But Keanu remained quiet. There were no bodyguards, no camera crew, just him. But this time, everyone inside recognized him. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Employees froze, a few looked nervous. Richard stood behind a counter, stiff and pale. The once busy showroom felt nearly empty. The boycott had clearly taken its toll. Keanu walked over to the car. The same one from before. He gently ran his fingers along the metal, studying it with the same calm presence. But now, all the pressure in the room came from the people watching him. Richard slowly approached, his posture unsure. Mr. Reeves, he began, voice low. I want to apologize. We started off badly. Maybe we could start over. I could show you the car again. Keanu turned, locking eyes with him. Start over? He said, voice soft but cutting. You think this is just about me? It's how you treat people? Richard opened his mouth but couldn't respond. Respect, Keanu continued, shouldn't be something you hand out only to those you think deserve it. Either you carry it with you, or you don't. Richard tried again, but Keanu raised a hand gently, not in anger. Just to pause him. I came here looking for something special. But what I found can't be fixed with a sales pitch or a sorry. That's why I won't be buying this car, not from this place. A stillness fell. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Keanu turned to leave. But just before walking out, he looked back. I hope this teaches you something. True luxury isn't about expensive cars. It's about how you treat people. And from what I've seen here, that kind of luxury is the rarest thing in this building. And with that, he walked out. The story didn't end there. The video kept circulating. But now, the focus had shifted. It wasn't just about what happened at a dealership. It was about how Keanu took a moment of humiliation and turned it into a powerful message. He became, once again, a symbol of dignity and quiet strength. Days later, he purchased the same car, but from a small, humble dealership across town. The owner, a middle-aged man named Sam, greeted him with a warm smile and no fanfare. Just respect, the kind that didn't need to be earned. Sam looked up and smiled. Welcome. How can I help you today? Keanu nodded gently. I'm looking for something special, he said. A car that stands for something more than just luxury. I think you can help me. There was no judgment. No assumptions, just a sincere interaction built on mutual respect. In the end, Keanu found exactly what he was looking for. He took a photo with Sam and his staff, posting it online with a simple caption that carried powerful weight. True luxury is being treated with respect. Thank you for reminding me of that. Once again, the post went viral. But this time, the spotlight wasn't on the disrespect. It was on a place that did it right. People began flooding the new dealership. Drawn by the idea of a business that prioritized dignity over image, Keanu's quiet gesture sparked something bigger, a global conversation. Social media lit up with hashtags like #RespectIsLuxury and #LearnFromKeanu, as individuals from all walks of life shared their own stories of discrimination and resilience. Campaigns promoting respect and inclusion sprang up everywhere. Major companies, even luxury brands, began reevaluating their practices, scared of the backlash that ignorance could bring. Meanwhile, the original dealership kept falling. Richard was fired after heavy criticism and the collapse of client trust. Though the company tried to restructure, the stain on its reputation remained. The incident had become more than a viral moment. It had turned into a business school case study in how not to treat people. In an interview, Keanu reflected on the journey with his signature humility. "I never wanted this to be about me," he said. "This isn't about who I am or what I do, it's about how we treat each other. Respect shouldn't be reserved for the wealthy or famous. It's something we all deserve." When asked what he learned, Keanu smiled softly and replied, "Even the hardest moments can spark change. Respect costs nothing, but when we give it freely, it can transform everything." The car he purchased didn't just sit in his garage. It was later restored and auctioned at a high-profile charity event, raising millions for organizations promoting equality and human dignity. That night, Keanu gave a short but unforgettable speech. This car was once just an object, but after everything, it now carries something greater, the reminder that we all have the power to make things better, as long as we lead with respect. The crowd rose in applause, and just like that, something that began with a moment of arrogance turned into a global lesson in humility. Keanu showed the world that in the face of injustice, grace and dignity can still win. Even the smallest act of kindness can leave the deepest mark.